created some legal chaos, but this third time may just be the charm for the president. Republican senators taking another try at changing Obamacare, but their deadline hits this week, and a couple of key colleagues say they are not on board. We'll see who would need to change their minds for their plan to work. And we'll take you to Puerto Rico, where millions of Americans need help after a terrible hurricane. There's not enough food, not enough gas, and a cleanup effort that could be measured in months. Let's get to it.
Breaking news. Shepard Smith reporting live from the Fox News deck.
Time is running out for Republicans to get something done on health care before they have to bring in Democrats, or more realistically, move on. On Capitol Hill right now, a hearing on health care plan in front of the Senate Finance Committee. Also, protests over the Republican plan, and some protesters being dragged out of the hearing. At the White House, President Trump is set to speak at any moment now on jobs, but we're also watching to see the president continues to put the pressure on his own party in hopes of avoiding another failure on health care. Senate Republicans yesterday added billions of extra dollars and eased coverage requirements as part of the health bill known as Graham-Cassidy. No coincidence here. The additional funding will go to states including Alaska, Arizona, Kentucky, Maine, and Texas. All of those are states that have a senator who has said he or she is voting no, or not right now, or hasn't yet committed. As we've reported, Senate Republicans can afford to lose but 2 votes and still pass the bill. If nothing changes, it's dead on arrival. Senators John McCain and Rand Paul have already said they're against the bill. Senator Ted Cruz of Texas has said he's a no at this moment. Senators Susan Collins and Mike Lee are described by our Capitol Hill producer as leaning no, and Senator Lisa Murkowski is publicly, at least, undecided. The chief White House correspondent John Roberts is live for us there this afternoon, and despite the no column, John, the White House is pushing for a vote.
They are pushing, Shep. They were trying to get 50 votes before the end of the week. As you mentioned, there's 4, maybe 6 holdouts. You've got Murkowski of Alaska. You've got Senator John McCain of Arizona. You've got, as well, Susan Collins of Maine, who's waiting for the CBO score to come out. That should be sometime probably in the next hour or 90 minutes or so. Rand Paul, who says that he's definitely against this, possibly Ted Cruz and Mike Lee as well. Some tweaks in the plan over the weekend that would give more money to certain states. The president tweeting, quote, Alaska, Arizona, Maine, and Kentucky are big winners in the health care proposal. 7 years of repeal and replace, and some senators not there. As Sarah Huckabee Sanders told us a short time ago at the briefing, the White House is pulling out all the stops to try to get this thing across the finish line. Listen here.
Whether or not there's a vote, we sure hope so. We've been calling on Congress to do what they were elected to do, and certainly what most of them campaigned on, and that's to repeal and replace Obamacare. We're continuing to push forward. We know we can't live with the Obamacare status quo.
The president also taking John McCain out to the woodshed after he came out and said definitively that he is against the Graham-Cassidy bill. Listen to what he said this morning on the Rick and Bubba show in Birmingham, Alabama.
I mean, you look at McCain. What McCain has done is a tremendous slap in the face of the Republican Party. Tremendous. I mean, he was good to go all week long, all month long. He was good to go. Then all of a sudden he goes thumbs down. And, you know, you can call it what you want. But that was that's the only reason we don't have it, because of John McCain.
And the president continuing to drive that point home in tweets over the weekend saying, quote, John McCain never had any intention of voting for this bill, which his governor loves. He campaigned on repeal and replace, let Arizona down, and then going on to say, Democrats are laughingly saying that McCain had a, quote, moment of courage. Tell that to the people of Arizona who were deceived. 100% increase. The president's talking about the cost of health care premiums there, Shep.
John, there's health care and this vote. There's a nuclear crisis with North Korea like nothing we've seen since the Cold War. There's cleanup and recovery in Puerto Rico and in Texas and in Florida, and a long, long list. And yet the White House keeps tweeting about football.
Yeah, and this all started on Friday night, Shep, when the president was down in Alabama at a rally for Senator Luther Strange, who is in the fight of his life in tomorrow night's primary, and the president zeroing in on respect for the American flag and going on to say that he wishes that some of these NFL owners, anytime one of these players takes a knee during the national anthem, would tell those SOBs that they're fired. I asked Sarah Huckabee Sanders about the president's comments and whether they were too strident at the briefing just a short time ago, given the reaction that they have provoked over the weekend. Let's listen to that exchange.
Did the president go too far?
I think that it's always appropriate for the president of the United States to defend our flag, to defend the national anthem, and to defend the men and women who fought and died to defend it.
And as we saw over the weekend, some 200 players out of more than 1,600 in the NFL either took a knee at their various games, or in the case of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Seattle Seahawks, and one other team, actually stayed inside the locker room rather than coming out for the national anthem, with one notable exception, Alejandro Villanueva from the Pittsburgh Steelers, who did 3 tours of duty as an Army Ranger in Afghanistan. He was the lone player during that game to come out of the tunnel, put his hand over his heart, and stand for the national anthem. As to those weekend protests, Roger Goodell, the NFL commissioner, said basically they reflected the frustration, the disappointment of the players over the divisive rhetoric that we heard from Trump. Tom Brady, the New England Patriots, also in a radio interview this morning on radio station WEEI, called the president's comments divisive and said he did not agree with what the president said. And now NASCAR is weighing in on all of this in an official statement saying, quote, "Sports are a unifying influence in our society, bringing people of different backgrounds and beliefs together. Our respect for the national anthem has always been a hallmark of our pre-race events. Thanks to the sacrifices of many, we live in a country of unparalleled freedoms and countless liberties, including the right to peacefully express one's opinion." And despite the fact that his team owner said that he wanted his team members and crew members to stand up for the national anthem, Dale Earnhardt Jr. tweeted, quote, "All Americans are granted rights to peaceful protests. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable," quoting JFK there. Shep?
John, thank you. The Trump administration's announced a new ban on travel to America. Critics are calling it nothing more than window dressing for a ban on Muslims. President Trump announced the new restrictions yesterday as his temporary ban on travelers was set to expire. That ban had stopped people from 6 majority Muslim nations from entering this country unless they had a so-called bona fide relationship here in the U.S. But now Sudan is just fine and off the list. Its neighbor Chad is now on the list, and Venezuela, although the restrictions apply only to a group of government officials and their families. The changes take effect on October the 18th. The Homeland Security officials say the 8 nations either failed to share enough information with the United States or did not take enough security precautions. In making the announcement, President Trump said this is all about security. The president tweeting, "Making America safe is my #1 priority. We will not admit those who into our country we cannot safely vet." New today, the Supreme Court canceled arguments set for next month on President Trump's old travel ban after he announced these new restrictions. Civil rights groups say the new ban is nothing more than cover. They argue even though North Korea and Venezuela are now on the list, this still amounts to a Muslim ban. The executive director of the American Civil Liberties Union says 6 of President Trump's targeted countries are Muslim. The fact that Trump has added North Korea, with few visitors to the United States, and a few government officials from Venezuela, does not obfuscate or conceal the real fact that the administration's order is still a Muslim ban. President Trump's original sin of targeting Muslims cannot be cured by throwing other countries onto his enemies list. Back to John Roberts at the White House now. John?
And the president yet believes that by modifying this travel ban, it will pass muster in the courts, that you can bet that there are organizations like the ACLU, like others, who will go to court as quickly as possible to try to get this one stopped as well. But the president believes that by broadening this out to include countries like Chad and North Korea and certain officials from Venezuela, it gets him out of that idea that so many people have talked about, and you read the statement from the ACLU there, that this is simply a Muslim ban, and he hopes that it's one that can pass muster in the court Courts, also because of the fact that the restrictions are tailored toward these individual countries. But certainly the waterfall of criticism continues to be aimed at the president, and whether it's on Capitol Hill or from the international community or from civil libertarian groups, you're going to hear a lot about this in the coming days, Shep, despite the fact, too, that the Supreme Court has now put on hold those hearings that were scheduled for the 10th, saying that with this new travel ban in place, those hearings are moot. Shep?
John Roberts at the White House. Thank you, John. Let's turn to Jill Colvin now, White House reporter for the Associated Press. Healthcare, is that over or not?
I mean, there's just, as always with this White House, so many different things going on this week. The White House is also planning to unveil its big tax reform plan this week as well. So they are just firing on multiple different fronts right now. On health care, it still seems like they're crossing their fingers, really, really hoping that they are able to pull a couple of senators over the line and save this bill. But even the president has acknowledged in his comments that it might not happen this time around.
Which of those might be available for the pullover as you describe it?
You know what? I think that we're going to have to see what the CBO report says today, but it's obviously not looking good.
And for our viewers, the CBO report won't be a full CBO report. That's not going to be available yet. But there'll be at least a little bit of guidance, and we'll get something from that and hear from those on Capitol Hill as a result of it. On these other matters, Jill, lots of discussion today about football, but I'd rather stick to the real issues at hand. The North Korea back and forth regarding nuclear war. It sounds like the North Koreans are now threatening to, in fact, they are threatening to shoot down our jets in that region. Does the White House plan to say more on this?
Yeah, I mean, this war of words is really just escalating to, I think, a point that most Americans have never seen before. You had the country's foreign minister today saying that the president's comments, his tweets over the weekend, his comments at the United Nations essentially amounted to a threat of war. You've got Sarah Huckabee Sanders just now at that briefing saying, no, we are not threatening war. We are not going to war with North Korea. You also had other State Department officials assuring that the U.S.'s plan right now is not regime change. But nonetheless, these are very scary words coming from these two personalities who just really seem to be escalating their rhetoric against one another.
We've not seen this sort of thing, certainly since the Cold War, and I wonder if there are meetings or discussions underway to try to tamp down the rhetoric and all that goes with it, because it's our understanding that what they really want is to get to the table and talk about this.
Yeah, and I mean, there have been some conversations through intermediaries taking place. And look, there are people at the White House who are concerned about this escalating rhetoric, about some of the president's tweets here, especially those that are specifically going after Kim Jong-un personally and kind of creating this personal war between these two men who are very much interested in digging in their heels. But this is really one of those situations where there are very few good options on the table available. And the White House has been thinking and right now just considering what all their options are, including military options.
You wrote on the travel ban today. Is that travel ban a fait accompli? Is that going to go through now, or is there more to come?
Yes, we had Travel Ban 1.0, 2.0. This is Travel Ban 3.0, but the president did sign a proclamation on Sunday. And what's different about this ban, especially from that first one that they pushed through in January, is really the amount of time that both DHS and the State Department have spent coming up with the standards that they use to pick which countries would be impacted. They're very concerned about potential legal challenges here. And so what they've done is they've spent months and months going through all of what they say are the requirements that they want from countries as people come to the United States. Those are things like whether those countries give their citizens secure passports, whether they report stolen and counterfeit passports to Interpol, whether they share information with the U.S. about people in their country who have extensive criminal or potential terrorist links. And the U.S. put together that set of benchmarks, went to every country in the world and said, here they are. You either comply and you can come to our country, or you don't comply and you will have restrictions placed on you. The government says that these 8 countries that they've selected are the 8 countries that do not live up to those requirements.
Jill Colvin, White House reporter for the Associated Press. Thank you, Jill.
Thanks.
Is the repeal of Obamacare effectively dead? Not if some Republicans can help it. Next, we'll report on how they're trying to convince some of the holdouts to get on board with their health care plan. That's coming up from the Fox News Desk on this Monday afternoon. More now on Republicans' latest push to change Obamacare. The party facing an uphill battle as some of its own senators have come out against the Graham-Cassidy proposal. Republicans control the Senate 52-48, and as we've reported, they can lose but 2 senators in order to be successful, since all Democrats say they will vote no. Unless something changes, it does not look good for the GOP's latest effort. Our chief congressional correspondent, Mike Emanuel, is live on Capitol Hill, where the Senate Finance Committee has been holding a hearing. Mike, first of all, what's it like there, and how are they trying to get senators to change their minds?
Well, Shep, they offered some sweeteners over the weekend, basically more spending to states like Alaska and Maine, hoping that might get them on board. Good old-fashioned tweak the legislation to get some yes votes. Bottom line, in the hallway here outside the Senate Finance Committee, it was really, really loud. You can see it's picking up a bit right now. All the disruption here, people expressing their First Amendment right, led to the Senate Finance Committee chairman making this announcement.
If the hearing is going to devolve into a sideshow or a forum simply for putting partisan points on the board, there's absolutely no reason for us to be here. I'm saying this for the benefit of my colleagues on the committee and everyone in the audience. Let's have a civil discussion.
So key Republicans were clearly looking to have this hearing this week on a critical week for this health care reform push by Republicans. It is not clear how long the hearing will go, but they are giving it their best shot. Bottom line, they are trying to get to 50 Republican yeses. It feels an awful lot like July when they kept saying they were getting close, but never did quite get there, Shep.
And if they don't get to 50 Republicans, they're going to have to rely on Democrats, and I assume they might as well just forget that.
Oh, forgive me, I'm having a little trouble hearing you in the hallway here, but in terms of the Democrat side of things, we just talked to Mazie Hirono from Hawaii, who said that she felt pretty good about things, but she said it's not over till it's over, and so her advice to folks like these people behind me was to keep fighting. Another key Democrat said that basically they should reject this effort by the Republicans.
Nobody has got to buy a lemon just because it's the last car on the lot. This Trump care bill is a health care lemon, a disaster in the making.
So the start of a very emotional week here on Capitol Hill. A lot of people who have disabilities are here today, along with activists and protesters. Senators on both sides getting an earful from folks as they debate health care reform in this country. Shep.
I'm hearing them say health care is a human right back there. Has this been going on all day? Mike, has this been going on all day? Describe it for us.
Oh, I'm sorry, Shep. It's just a little hard to hear. They were lined up here all day. They really got loud around 2 o'clock or so when senators were going in to the hearing room for this hearing. They died down a little bit at times after some were arrested, some were dispersed by Capitol Police, but they're firing up again, perhaps with some senators in the hallway or just wanting to express their First Amendment right.
There you go. Mike Emanuel in the halls of Congress. Thank you. Republicans on the Hill are bracing for their health care effort to fail. That's the word from our next guest, who says there is very simple reason that this bill cannot pass. So what's that reason? She'll have it for us next. So if you're the GOP and you want to pass this new health care bill, mainly you want to crush Obamacare and get rid of it, how do you get enough senators on board to make it happen? What do? Let's turn to Rachel Bade, congressional reporter for Politico. It's not like they're not trying. They are, Rachel. What more can they do?
Not a whole lot more. And my Republican sources on the Hill are basically telling me they're bracing for failure right now. And that is because on the one side, you have conservatives who want to take this bill further to the right. Ted Cruz, Rand Paul wanting to repeal more Obamacare regulations. But when you do that, you open up folks with pre-existing conditions, folks who are relying on Medicaid, you put them in a vulnerable spot. And so you have a lot of moderates, centrist Republicans, who are holding out and who are worried about supporting this bill because they think it's going to hurt people who rely on these programs. And then add on top of that these protests that we're seeing right now. I just don't see Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, John McCain switching his vote and saying that they're going to back this. So a lot of my Republican colleagues, sources are saying this is not going to go anywhere.
What made them think that this time would be different? I mean, why bring this up again to what appears, at least for now, to be a failure if you didn't have something to placate those who were voting no?
I think two things. The first thing is the time issue. Right now, as you know, Republicans only have until the end of the week to pass an Obamacare repeal. Once we hit Saturday, they can't do this anymore because they lose the ability to circumvent Democrats and bypass the filibuster in the Senate. That tool goes away, disappears. So Republicans were hoping that because of this time pressure, that people would sort of feel like they had to support something right now, even if they didn't quite like everything the legislation looked like. A second thing, a lot of Republicans, Graham and Cassidy, were also going to throw some more money at opponents right now, where there's talk about putting more money for Alaska, Arizona, and also Kentucky, aimed squarely at senators who are currently opposed. But the issue is that you can't just buy these guys off. John McCain's complaint, it's not necessarily about money as much as it is about process. He wants more bipartisanship. He wants more committee hearings. Also, Rand Paul, he hates the idea of sending health care money to the states. He says there shouldn't be any federal health care money. He says get rid of that. So these are things you just can't bridge these divides. And Republicans, they are seeing the time ticking right now, and they want to do something, but they're in a bad spot right now.
On top of that, the president talking about North Korea on the one hand and sort of ratcheting that event up, and on the other hand about, you know, all the racism stuff with the NFL. He's not been tweeting about health care at all. Does he even care about this?
Well, he certainly says he does, right? I mean, I can tell you Republicans on the Hill are very upset about the fact that he's, you know, in a war right now with the NFL. They say it's a distraction. They could really use his help right now in getting this across the finish line. Another thing, he was supposed to make a big push on tax reform this week. We're going to see Republicans put out a bunch of details on tax reform. He's going to go out, the president's going to go out and stump for it. But look at the front page of the papers right now. We're seeing, again, like you said, the spat between the president and the NFL, and this is not things that Republicans want to be talking about.
Well, Republicans may not want it. Rachel, Republicans may not want it. But this thing, you know, I read the email. I have Twitter, though I let them take care of it. It's very clear that for his base, this is the red meat of all red meat, because they're able to reframe this. They're able to say, oh, they're attacking the national anthem. They're attacking the troops. They're attacking the flag. None of which they're doing. They're not doing any of that. They're upset about racial injustice in the country, and they're upset about the things that the president has said. And yet he's able to turn it around for his base. Isn't this all a play to his base? And could it possibly be so that they don't notice there is no health care and North Korea is the biggest mess since the Cold War?
Maybe a distraction he wants right now, right? No, it definitely plays up to a corner of his base, a fraction of his base. I can tell you, I was talking to a Republican about this just a couple of hours ago, and they don't see this as being helpful at all. This source was saying, you know, these protesters were just a few players, and they were barely getting any headlines, and then Trump attacked them and attacked the NFL, and ever since then it's just ratcheted up so that now you have a whole bunch of 200 players taking a knee or back in the locker room not standing for the national anthem. And it's an ugly dispute right now, right? People in general don't like it when folks protest the national anthem, but it's become more.
Of course, they're not protesting the national anthem.
Right, correct.
That's not what they're doing. We're complicit.
It has become more than just about the flag, obviously, because the folks feel like the president is bullying black football players after the Charlottesville controversy just a few weeks later. So, yeah, it's just bad all around for Republicans. We can say that.
Yep. Rachel Bade, great to see you again from Politico. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ahead, more on the showdown with North Korea after the White House today dismissed the claim that President Trump has declared war on North Korea. But that's coming up in 2 minutes. What we've learned about the man who police say shot people inside a church in Tennessee, and the usher who risked his life to take down the gunman. That's straight away. There's breaking news now. President Trump making an announcement on jobs. According to the White House, the president will sign a memorandum directing the Department of Education to spend $200 million of its $59 billion budget in support of the STEM fields. STEM is science, tech, engineering, and math, plus computer coding classes. Worth noting, a month ago, many company executives, including tech giants, resigned their posts on 2 councils advising President Trump on business. More recently, the leaders of Apple, Facebook, Google, and Microsoft have criticized the president for ending the so-called Dreamers immigration program. The president also asked about North Korea. This is tape playback from the White House. Let's listen together.
See how nice they are? See, everything you read about them doesn't mean it's necessarily so. Do they look like nice people? He's a nice person, Steve. Well, thank you all. It's a great pleasure to be here with Secretary DeVos, Secretary Acosta, and Ivanka. I also want to express my appreciation to Representatives Bradley Byrne, Susan Brooks, Lamar Smith, and Virginia Fox. Thank you all for being here. Thank you. Thank you very much for being with us. And Mimi Walters, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Susan. I want to just talk about leadership. It's the most important issue. We need leadership in this country, women and girls, and for every child in America, represented by all of the incredible students here today. These are great students. Are you all good students? Everybody has really terrific marks, right?
Yes.
Well, you're doing fantastically. That's why you're in. I just said before the press came in, what's the name of this office? Every one of them knew that, right? As you know, the workplace is changing. We need to create new pathways for all our citizens to get the best jobs. When you get out of school, you want to get great jobs, right?
Yes.
I've asked Ivanka to lead up the White House efforts on workforce development, and the initiative today is a critical part of that endeavor. Have you seen Ivanka? Do you know Ivanka? She's here someplace. Where's Ivanka? There's Ivanka. My administration will do everything possible to provide our children, especially kids in underserved areas, with access to high-quality education in science, technology, engineering, and math. You're a good math student?
Yeah.
Are you? Let's see. What's your strength in school? Huh? Science?
Yes.
Good science, right? What's your strength?
Take class.
Here you go, man. Thank you, honey. Thank you. Oh. And particularly computer science for grades K through 12. That's so important now, right? It's a whole new world. You got to know how to use those computers. Currently, more than half of high schools do not offer computer programming, and nearly 40% do not offer physics. Now, do you have computer programming in your schools? All of them? How about you? Do you have them in your schools? All computer? You're all pretty good with the computers?
Yes.
Well, it's important nowadays. Greater access to STEM and computer science programs will ensure that our children can develop the skills they need to compete and to win in the workforce of tomorrow. Who likes to win? Anybody like to lose? I don't know. Oh, that's a little wise guy back. Better STEM education also means higher paying jobs for American workers and families. You get out of school, you get great, really great jobs, high paying jobs. And we're doing very well with the employment roles today. You get really good jobs. And we want our amazing young Americans to fill these jobs, earn a great living, lift up their communities, and achieve their American dreams. The directives I'm sharing today with Secretary DeVos at the helm to make STEM education, including computer science, a priority for the Department of Education. Is that right, Betsy? It's going to be a big thing that you're doing.
Absolutely.
And that's working out well?
Absolutely.
You're moving on it incredibly. The department will explore ways to add or increase computer science to existing K-12 and K through 12 and post-secondary education programs. It also establishes a goal of devoting at least listen to this number, $200 million each year in grants toward funding this priority. So that's $200 million a year. Does that sound like big bucks?
Yes.
What do you guys think? Peanuts. It's peanuts, right? You're going to say, give us more, right? We got to get more. But now $200 million each year in grants, and that's toward funding this very, very important priority. So with today's action, we will help give our American children a pathway to success in the workforce of tomorrow. Thank you, and God bless you all, and I really appreciate you being in the White House. And I know you're going to take a little tour in a little while, but we start right here in the Oval Office. But it's an honor to have all of you. And someday you'll be great students, and you'll be the leaders of the world, the United States and the world, right?
Yes.
Would any of our representatives, maybe I'll start with Betsy. Would you like to say something? Betsy DeVos, everybody.
Well, Mr. President, thank you for your support of STEM initiatives, and especially to the students who are here today. Thank you for your commitment to your own futures. And with this initiative, we hope and trust that you're going to have more opportunities to pursue the things that are most interesting to you and that will afford you the greatest opportunities for your future and collectively for our futures. So thank you so much, Mr. President, and for all of the students, good luck and all the best in your studies. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And the Secretary has been working really hard to get this done. This is just one of many things, but you've been working very hard. And Alex, would you say a few things? Secretary Alex Acosta.
Thank you, Mr. President. As the father of 2 young girls, I know firsthand how important it is to start early. And what's so exciting about this initiative from my perspective is all the young kids that are going to be exposed to computer science and to coding and to STEM, because if you start early, it's transformative, and especially for young girls. I see it at home. It's so important. I'm excited to see all of you here. So, you know, it's wonderful you're here, and Mr. President, thank you for doing this for all the kids.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Alex. Great job. Bradley?
Mr. President, I'm from Alabama. We started the Alabama Math Science Technology Initiative almost 20 years ago, and we thought it was the thing of the future. Well, it's the thing of the present. And your signing this today means a lot to young people and educators all over America. Thank you for doing this.
Well, thank you. And Alabama is a great state. We love Alabama. Susan Brooks?
Thank you, Mr. President. Hello, kids. I'm from Indiana. I was in a 4th grade class last week in Carmel, Indiana, Mrs. McKay's class in Town Meadow Elementary, and they are using computers all day long, doing virtual field trips, learning instantly, and the teacher knows where their problems are right away. And just so you know, the jobs of the future, we don't even know what they all are. And so because of technology and because of this funding, computer science in class, you're going to be ready. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Susan. These are all very powerful people that are speaking, just so you know, okay? Lamar Smith.
Mr. President, thank you. I'm chairman of the Science Committee in the House, and I just want to thank the President for giving a priority to STEM education and then to computer science in particular. In the last Congress, I introduced a bill that became law to expand the definition of STEM to include computer science. So I'm especially grateful to the President for emphasizing that. And Mr. President, good to be here.
Thanks, Lamar. Appreciate it. Virginia?
Well, as chairwoman of the Education and Workforce Committee, Mr. Speaker, Mr. President.
I'll take Speaker, too. Get things done.
We are so proud of you for doing this. We know we have 5.6 million jobs available right now to our workforce, and many of them are unfilled because our employees do not have the skills they need. So it's wonderful to see us encouraging these young people to begin early, to be involved in these subject matters. And we need to spread this idea throughout our culture for people of all ages. But we particularly, as others have said, want to get the young people engaged, involved, and excited about all of these subjects.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mimi, where are you?
I'm right here, Mr. President. I'm Mimi Walters from California, and want to thank you very much for signing this legislation today. I'm a mom of 4 kids, and STEM is very exciting. When I was in high school, computers were just getting into school. So we've come a long way, and it's very exciting to see so many young kids here that are interested in STEM. So thank you very much for signing this today.
Thank you very much, and you've done a great job, and we appreciate it. You've all done a great job, and it's something very special. My daughter's here. Should we hear from Ivanka? What do you think? Yes, I think so, right? Ivanka, come
First of all, thank you all for being here. You are the future of innovators and entrepreneurs and engineers and programmers in this country. So it's so exciting to see your enthusiasm. But today represents a giant leap forward as we think about aligning the skills that are taught in the classroom with the skills that are in demand in the modern economy. So we're very excited about today's announcement and towards really focusing on the goal of putting Americans to work and making sure that all Americans get great paying jobs. So thank you all for being here, and I look forward to watching you all go on to accomplish many amazing and extraordinary things.
Thank you. So education, thanks, Ivanka. And
thank you.
Education is just so important at every level, whether it's this or whatever you're studying. And always remember this, do what you love, study what you love. Your parents may want you to do something, and you should always listen to your parents, but try to focus on the things that you love, whether it's in studies or when you get out of school. Do what you love and you're going to be successful. Work hard, all of those things, but you have to follow your heart to a certain extent and maybe even to a large extent. So when you get out there, make sure that it's very interesting. I say this a lot, do what you love, but then it's not work. Because if you love it, it's not working. It's like a pleasure. So always follow your hearts, and you're going to be tremendously successful people, and you're going to remember this day because it's a special place. You're in a special place, and very few get to come and see this, but I wanted you to see it today. It is a very, very special area of the world. It all happens here, and you're here today, and it's my honor to have you. So go out there, work really hard, and do really well. Okay? And
yes.
I'll see you soon.
Thank
I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to sign. The question is, who gets the pen? Who's going to get this pen? Who? I have a feeling. I have a feeling, right? We'll get you another one, okay? Get me some additional pens, and what we're going to do is we're going to give them out to the students. Because you'll be the one signing this in the future, future generation. All right, so if you could get me some additional pens.
We'll send them to the schools.
Thank you. Okay, we'll send them the good ones. Not the bad ones, the good ones, like this. So we're going to give this to a very special woman who's worked so hard on this. And I think that's... Are you ready for it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we'll put her in charge of healthcare. I think we're going to put you in charge. It'll get done, right? If you do the healthcare, it'll get done. Okay, everybody. This is very important. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Is the U.S. declaring war on North Korea as the foreign minister?
Thank you all very much.
President speaking at the White House with some mighty good little kids about STEM programs and $200 million they're planning to spend to try to get people code ready and technologically efficient.